I recently sat across from a man who has achieved what 99% of the world dreams of. His liquid net worth is exactly $5,120,482. He has no debt. His house is paid off. His children's education is secured. By every metric of modern society, he has won the game. But as he sat there gripping a glass of water, he looked me in the eye and said something that haunted me. Ted, I've never felt more vulnerable in my life. Most people spend their entire lives convinced that financial freedom is a destination, a specific number where the wind stops blowing and the anxiety finally vanishes. We believe that if we just stack enough bricks of capital, we will eventually be safe. But for Michael, the man I just described, the opposite happened. The higher his fortress grew, the more he feared the fall. Why does $5 million feel like poverty to the person who owns it? Why does a 1% market dip feel like a death sentence to someone who could lose 50% of their wealth and still live better than a king? This isn't a financial problem. It's a cognitive glitch. Today, I am opening a formal investigation into the psychological parasite that infects the successful. We are going to dissect the hidden tax on the human soul and look at the 3 specific files that explain why for many the finish line is a ghost that keeps moving. File number 1, the identity anchor. When Michael was 25 and had $5,000 in his bank account, his identity was tied to his potential. He was the grinder, the up-and-comer. If he lost that $5,000, it was a setback, but it wasn't a tragedy because his value was in his future earnings. But at 55, with $5,120,482, the math has changed. He is no longer looking at his potential, he is looking at his pile. His net worth has transitioned from being a tool for living to being the literal scoreboard of his human value. This is the first psychological glitch, the attachment trap. When your bank account becomes your identity, every market fluctuation is no longer a financial event. It is an existential threat. If the S&P 500 drops 2% in a morning, Michael doesn't just see a $100,000 paper loss. He feels like he is 2% less of a man. He feels 2% less safe, 2% less successful, and 2% closer to the zero he spent 30 years running away from. He has forgotten that money is a depreciating asset if it costs you your peace of mind. He has built a golden cage, and now he is the one standing guard inside it. File number 2, the complexity tax. There is a lie we are told about wealth that more money equals more simplicity. The reality is that wealth is an attractor of complexity. When you have $50,000, you have a bank account. When you have $5 million, you have a portfolio, a tax strategy, an estate plan, insurance premiums, and a target on your back. You don't just own the beach house. The beach house owns your Saturday mornings when the roof leaks or the property taxes jump. I asked Michael how he spent his last Tuesday. He didn't spend it hiking or learning a new language. He spent 4 hours on the phone with his accountant and 2 hours staring at a spreadsheet of what-if scenarios for the 2028 tax year. He has reached the summit, but he's too busy checking the ropes to look at the view. This is the transition from wealth as freedom to wealth as a full-time job. If your assets require more of your attention than your passions do, you aren't an owner. You're a high-paid janitor for your own estate. File number 3, the ghost of relative poverty. The final reason Michael feels poor is because of who he eats lunch with. When he had $1 million, he was the richest man in his social circle. He felt like a titan. But as his wealth grew to $5 million, he moved into a new neighborhood. He joined a new club. Suddenly, he wasn't the guy with the big pile. He was the guy with the smallest boat in the marina. This is the hedonic treadmill in its most vicious form. In the world of high net worth, there is always someone with $50 million who makes your $5 million look like a rounding error. Michael isn't comparing himself to the person he was 20 years ago. He's comparing himself to the billionaire he'll never be. He is playing a game with no ceiling and no exit. Before we move to the final file and the only way to break this cycle, I want to ask you a question. Pause this video for 5 seconds. If you had $5 million in your account right now, what is the one thing you are absolutely certain you would stop worrying about? Write it in the comments. I want to see if we're all chasing the same ghost. The final file, the hard ceiling. The reason Michael is terrified isn't because he doesn't have enough money. It's because he never defined what enough actually looks like. In finance, we are taught to maximize, but we are never taught to satisfy. Without a predetermined exit point, your brain will naturally default to the more setting. It's a biological survival mechanism that has outlived its usefulness. The truly wealthy people I've met, the ones who actually sleep through the night, all have one thing in common. They have a hard ceiling. They decided long before they hit the number exactly where the finish line was. They realized that the marginal utility of the $6 million is almost zero compared to the cost of the stress required to get it. They stopped playing the game of accumulation and started playing the game of utilization. Michael's $5,120,482 is a ghost because it has no purpose other than to exist. It's not buying him time, it's consuming it. It's not buying him peace, it's fueling his paranoia. If you don't give your money a job to do it, we'll eventually give you a job you didn't ask for. The investigation ends here, but your choice begins now. You can spend your life building a fortress that eventually becomes your prison, or you can decide today what your version of enough is. Wealth is not the number in your bank account. It is the ability to walk away from the table while the game is still going. If you've ever felt like the finish line keeps moving just as you're about to cross it, comment the word enough below. It's time we stop running and start owning the lives we've already worked so hard to build. I'm Ted, and this is the price of the life you choose.